Introducing a completely redesigned experience that you can sense. And that senses you. The new Dell Latitude laptops bring your work closer to you.
Welcome to Nine's Late News. I'm Michael Genovese and these are your headlines this Tuesday night. Breaking news, the Prime Minister evacuated from the lodge over a safety threat. The tragic end to the search for an abducted Sydney grandfather, now the search for his killers. Is the US about to strike Iran? Donald Trump builds military presence in the Middle East. A reality TV contestant accused of a string of serious offences. And a year's worth of rain in a week. Parts of the country bracing for a monster weather system.
This is 9 News with Michael Genovese.
Good evening. We go straight to that breaking news out of Canberra, where a safety threat at the lodge has forced the Prime Minister to be evacuated. Political editor Charles Croucher is there. Charles, good evening. What's happened?
Evening, Michael. I can tell you the Prime Minister is back inside the lodge after an unusual 3 hours that involved the AFP and specialist officers painstakingly sweeping the Prime Minister's residence. Now, all you can see of them is a couple of cars doing the rounds and some possums in the tree behind me. What we do know, the Prime Minister was here this afternoon. He did a live podcast with our own Carl Stefanovic from inside the lodge. Then around 6 is when this threat was realised. From there, the Prime Minister and anyone inside was taken out of the lodge to an undisclosed location, and that painstaking sweeping began. It took around 3 hours. We also know there have been increased threats against politicians, particularly federal politicians, in recent times. The ASIO boss spoke about it last year. The Prime Minister himself spoke about it, and that was before the Bondi terror attack that only heightened some of the threats and some of the rhetoric around the country. Even tonight, a man has been arrested for sending threatening emails to a federal politician, totally separate to what was going on here. The good news, we know that the lodge is one of those places considered safe, considered well secured. In fact, so well secure the Prime Minister was able to have his wedding here at the end of last year. It is secured again tonight. We're told it's been given the all clear. The Prime Minister is inside, and the AFP will release more information as they deem necessary in the days ahead. Michael.
Live for us in Canberra, Charles Croucher. Thank you for the update this evening. Police are tonight ramping up their manhunt for those responsible for murdering a Sydney grandfather. Chris Bagzarian was abducted from his home 11 days ago in a shocking case of mistaken identity. Madison Scott is following the story for us. Maddie, the 85-year-old's body was discovered today.
Michael, police found human remains this morning in Sydney's northwest. The 11-day search for the kidnapped elderly widow coming to an end in the middle of a field near a golf club in Pitt Town. This is about an hour from Chris Bagzarian's home, where he was snatched and bundled into a ute on Friday the 13th. There was initially proof of life. The kidnappers sent a video to a gangland figure showing the grandfather bound and bloodied in an abandoned Dural property. His body was later dumped and the car used was then set alight. By Thursday, police found the abandoned home at Dural, but it was empty. They searched the surrounding area for almost 2 days before making the discovery today, 10 kilometres away. Police believe the intended target was a relative of Sydney businessman Dimitri Stefanian. Chris Bagzarian.
We're outraged that this is happening and the recklessness of these people. We will endeavour and use every resource that we have to identify those responsible.
Chris Bagzarian's family tonight telling 9 News he was a very quiet and peaceful man and that they were horrified by this injustice. He came to Australia to live a good life, and in the end, this is what he suffered. Michael, police are now investigating whether this entire kidnapping was orchestrated offshore and whether the 3 men who took him were muscle for hire.
Maddie Scott, thank you for the update. The forensic operation is likely to continue into the morning. And for more, I'm joined by criminologist Dr. Xanthi Weston. Xanthi, thank you for your time this evening. Do we know yet what led police to where Chris Bagzarian's body was finally found?
We do. As we heard in that introduction a moment ago, there was an abandoned farmhouse in Dural where the kidnappers actually took Mr. Bagzari. So that was linked to a Toyota Corolla that was later seen further north, and those sightings led to the search that has been undertaken over the last few days.
10 days, it's a long time. What is the likelihood now of police finding his killers?
Well, a strike force has been initiated now. To start with, that was to find the victim, but later on it was also to identify those who've taken him. We have the videos, we have a number of scenes now, the farmhouse, the vehicles, etc. So the police will be doing everything that they can to find those responsible.
Chris Bagzarian was mistakenly targeted. This crime has strong links to Sydney's underworld.
It certainly does. So we know that he was certainly not the intended victim, and that was probably the relatives of Dimitri Stefanyan, who lived a number of doors away, only about 3 doors away. And he's allegedly linked to the Alameddine crime family, who are very important in the drug trade in Sydney. And so it's likely that the crime's actually associated with the Alameddines.
Dr. Xanthi Weston, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
US President Donald Trump has deployed military force to the Middle East in a concerning sign the United States may launch an attack on Iran. Joining me now is defence expert Jennifer Parker from the Australian National University. Jen, good evening. Firstly, is the United States going to strike, and what has gotten us to this point?
Look, I think this is the million-dollar question. There are clearly 2 tracks at the moment. There is a military track. We see a significant build-up of US forces in the Middle East, the largest since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. There is also a diplomatic track. We saw talks in Geneva between the US and Iran last week. There are talks coming up on Thursday this week, but there is a general view that it's going to be difficult for the US and Iran to agree a position. The US's position is that Iran is to cease uranium enrichment, to limit its ballistic missile program and cease supporting proxies. That's a maximalist view. Iran's position is that although they want to work with negotiations, they won't agree to any of those. So I don't think we're about to see strikes in the next 24 to 48 hours. But in the long term, it does look increasingly likely. And we see an aircraft carrier in the Middle East, another aircraft carrier from the US in the Mediterranean, and a significant amount of air power supporting whatever the US chooses to do.
If Donald Trump was to pull the trigger, what would a US attack look like?
Well, look, he has a range of options. You know, those military assets that I just mentioned could undertake a whole suite of things. I guess the question is, what are his political objectives? If his political objectives are to put more pressure on Iran to make a deal about not enriching uranium, then it looks like, you know, target sets could be nuclear facilities, probably ballistic missile facilities. If his political objectives go further and are political in nature, then you may see the Iranian Revolution Guard Corps senior leadership hit, maybe even some of the regime. So it is difficult to say, but he has a wide range of options at this stage.
Speaking with Jennifer Parker from the ANU, Jen, today marks 4 years since Russia launched its military invasion of Ukraine. How significant is this anniversary?
Look, it is very significant, you know, and I think we need to acknowledge the significant loss of life that has occurred of Ukrainian civilians, the significant loss of life of soldiers on both sides following Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Certainly the view was that, you know, Putin thought his special military operation would be over quickly. Most Western analysts in 22 thought that this would be over in a couple of days. And Ukraine has fought valiantly. But really, the fighting has now frozen across front lines in the east of Ukraine. Russia controls about 90% of that Donbass region. They are still putting significant pressure on Ukraine, striking energy infrastructure in the midst of a very cold winter, which really impacts the civilian population. So, again, it is a poignant anniversary and quite a sad anniversary.
Is there an end in sight for this conflict?
Look, I think, unfortunately, there is not an end in sight. Now, we did see a flurry of activity last year around negotiations. Of course, Donald Trump famously claimed to end this war within 24 hours of taking over. That hasn't happened. We have seen negotiations in Geneva last week, but it was only a couple of hours. We've got negotiations potentially again this week. But at its core, Russia's position is maximalist. They want to have the entirety of the Donbass region, even elements that they haven't yet taken military control of. They want to limit Ukraine's ability to grow and maintain its military forces and Ukraine's ability to join NATO. On Ukraine's side of things, they're reluctant to give up territory, of course, and the Ukrainians that live within that territory, but also they are seeking some sort of security guarantee from the US that the US has been reluctant to give. So All of those things are quite difficult to move through, and I just don't see this being resolved in the short term, unfortunately.
Jennifer Parker, thanks for your time this evening.
Thanks so much.
A high-profile Perth doctor has been handed a 10-year jail sentence over an alcohol-fuelled high-speed crash that claimed the life of a young university student. Ezra Holt has the details and a warning. The footage in this report is confronting.
Several people had to leave the courtroom before that vision was played. In it, you can hear Dr. Reese Henry Stone Bellinge swearing and driving aggressively in the lead up to the collision. The 46-year-old had clocked more than 130 kilometres per hour in one of Perth's wealthy western suburbs when he struck a curb and lost control, smashing into a rideshare vehicle. Inside, 24-year-old Elizabeth Pearce died from her injuries, and 25-year-old Uber driver Mohammed Usman survived. The lead-up and aftermath captured on the Jaguar's dashcam. Reese Bellinge swearing and driving aggressively before crashing and then repeatedly apologising. The injured Uber driver today breaking his silence, calling for road safety and aiming for a full recovery.
Get your anger out in some other way. Please do not drive under the influence. Hopefully I will recover soon with the help of medical professionals and secure a job soon in civil engineering.
While Elizabeth Pearce's father honouring her daughter as a beautiful and energetic young woman.
And it just goes to show how well loved Elizabeth is and how much of a hole that she's left in our hearts. She didn't deserve this at all.
Reese Bellinge will be eligible for parole after serving 8.5 years in prison.
A reality TV show contestant has faced court accused of harassing and sexually assaulting multiple women. Claire Todd-Hunter has the details.
Ricardo Valenza, who featured on an Australian dating show in 2023, was arrested in Mooloolaba on the Sunshine Coast yesterday morning after a months-long investigation. Police say they've identified 11 alleged victims who Valenza is accused of approaching online, offering them money in exchange for sexual activity. These women, aged between 26 and 35 years old, not initially known to him and allegedly groomed over time. Valenza has been charged with 31 offences, including 11 counts of rape, 6 counts of stalking and a count of administering a stupefying drug. His alleged offending occurring between July 2023 and November last year. Police believe there could still be more victims.
If there are any other persons within our community that believe that they may be victim of this male person, to reach out to police, report that information so they can be properly and thoroughly investigated. The
31-year-old was remanded in custody. He's due to face court again in April.
We can tonight share footage with you of 4-year-old Gus Lamont, 5 months after he vanished from his family's property in outback South Australia. As Samantha Hogan reports, it's the first time we've heard from the boy's parents.
This is all in a desperate appeal for answers about Gus's suspicious disappearance. This video of the little boy is the first we've ever seen. The 4-year-old riding a bike outside his outback homestead, the place where he mysteriously vanished in September last year. A new photo of the 4-year-old also provided by his parents today to assist the investigation, alongside a lengthy statement. In it, they say every moment without him is unbearable. We know someone out there may have information. We are pleading with that person to please come forward. All we want is to bring Gus home and understand what happened to our beautiful boy. This all comes after yet another search for the missing boy failed to uncover any clues about Gus's whereabouts in the outback last week. And his grandparent, Josie Murray, was arrested on an unrelated firearms offence. But police say they do have a suspect, someone who lived with Gus, but that isn't either of his parents. Major crime detectives plan to return to the Mid-North to continue making inquiries about Gus Lamont in the near future.
Large parts of the country have been issued weather warnings. Some communities told to brace for a year's worth of rain in a week. Jessica Millward with the details.
Well, this is a huge weather system that is going to impact the Northern Territory, New South Wales, South Australia and Queensland. The warning area size is the size of France and Belgium combined. Already this tropical low is causing major issues in South Australia's north. The crucial east-west railway has been washed away in parts, causing the major freight lines closure until at least the weekend.
We will see those 6-hourly rainfall totals of between 30 to 90 millimetres continuing over the next few days, and daily rainfall totals will exceed 100 millimetres for many areas. The low pressure system responsible for this is incredibly slow moving, and so it continues to drag a lot of tropical moisture down from the north of the country and into the interior.
Here in Queensland, it's the northwest of the state that will really feel the brunt of this in places that are already soaked from rain earlier in the month.
It does concern us, primarily around how long it'll keep the highways closed. Cloncurry and the neighbouring areas, including Mount Isa at the moment, are isolated from the east and to the south.
These are also places that are still recovering from last month's floods that led to devastating stock losses. This wet season breaking records in the outback.
Still to come on 9's Late News. Australians tonight stuck in Mexico. The warning for anyone travelling to the tourist haven. Heartbreak for women who say a renowned gynaecologist performed surgery they didn't need.
And after educating generations of Aussie kids about the challenges of life, Healthy Harold now takes his lessons to the virtual world.
Stay with us live on 9 and streaming on 9 Now. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Victoria's police and healthcare watchdogs are investigating a Melbourne gynaecologist who allegedly performed unnecessary surgery on women for endometriosis. Steph is one of more than 100 women who claim they've had reproductive tissue or organs removed by Dr. Simon Gordon. Despite little evidence, they had the disease.
I feel sick about the entire situation for what's happened to me and so many other people.
Women deserve answers. These victims deserve justice.
The Epworth Hospital, where he operated, has also launched its own independent inquiry. Dr. Gordon denies any wrongdoing. An Australian couple has been caught in the crossfire of Mexico's cartel crime wave. The Lanigans telling 9 News they were forced to run for their lives as their tour bus was torched and bullets flew around them.
Rob and Wendy Lanigan were 3 days into a 10-week holiday when their tour van was ambushed, leaving the resort city of Puerto Vallarta.
It was a pretty harrowing journey, to say the least.
We didn't expect they would kind of blow up all our stuff.
The cartel members torching the van before firing their guns, the couple from Victoria running as their bags and passports burned.
A bus turned up and it was a Mexican Marine bus. And he took all the passengers on board.
After several hours, soldiers with machine guns arrived in utes and escorted the tour group to a nearby military base. The wave of violence, the cartel's retaliation after a government operation took out Mexico's most wanted drug kingpin, El Mencho. It was a turbulent night, but today the country's president says there's more tranquility. Rob, a retired firefighter, says they've been told it's still too unsafe to leave the base and they're sharing a room with members of their tour group.
We're wearing donated clothes today. It's like something out of St Vincent de Paul rummage sale.
There's lots of men with big guns protecting us.
They're incredibly grateful to the military and are waiting for the next step, travelling to Mexico City and visiting the Australian Embassy for advice and emergency passports.
But we're hoping to continue. We'll see what happens.
In the United States, Reid Butler, 9 News.
Donald Trump has dumped Australian-American Nick Adams as his nominee for ambassador to Malaysia. The MAGA diehard, who once served on a Sydney council, was nominated for the role last year, but was never confirmed by the US Senate. Mr Adams says he's been promoted to another role, soon to be revealed. As the royal family weathers the Epstein storm, the Queen has met with Giselle Pellico, whose husband is serving 20 years in jail for drugging and raping her with dozens of men.
I never thought I could be shocked by anything anymore, but I was as well shocked at your depression.
Camilla has a history of supporting victims of sexual and domestic abuse and is clearly eager to signal survivors come first. Stay with us. When we return, Pauline's popularity soars. New polling has One Nation nipping at the heels of Labor. Plus, just how much you need to live a comfortable retirement. And global music superstar Bad Bunny touches down in Sydney. Did he charter a Qantas Super Jumbo to head down under? Welcome back. New polling shows support for One Nation continues to surge, now nipping at the heels of the Labor Party. And as Conor McGovern reports, voters see Pauline Hanson more favourably than Anthony Albanese.
The right-wing party is eyeing off opposition status in the upcoming South Australia state election, and it may be setting its sights even higher with the release of new nationwide numbers. Demos AU polling finding One Nation's primary vote has soared, now 28%, just a bare point behind the Labor Party and well ahead of the coalition. A similar story for preferred Prime Minister. Anthony Albanese in front, Pauline Hanson behind him, but still 6 points clear of new Liberal leader Angus Taylor. But on a favourability rating where leaders are measured in a positive or negative light, it's the controversial Queensland senator hitting the front. Given the rise of One Nation, releasing policies is the next step, allowing it to pivot from a grievance protest party to one which could actually govern.
They'll identify grievance but never ever come up with a single cost of living measure support. The polling represents people, one, walking away from the coalition. The Liberal Party and the National Party are a bit of a mess.
It is good reading for One Nation, less so for the opposition. Its slide in support has slowed with a change of leadership, but Angus Taylor's instalment hasn't given them a boost.
Well, let's get a hit of finance now. Looking at the markets at home, the All Ords closed in the red, down 7 points. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones took a tumble, losing more than 800 points. And there's more red in London, the FTSE 71 points lower. Checking the Aussie dollar against the major currencies, right now buying 59 euro cents, 70 US cents and 109 Japanese yen. On to commodities, nothing but red. Gold sitting at $5,100 US an ounce. Silver is at 88 and oil is buying $71 US a barrel. Let's now bring in Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer at Motley Fool. Scotty, good evening to you. First up, the finance world is still dealing with a tariff hangover. Tonight, confirmation that that blanket rate will be 10%, not 15%.
Jenna, good evening. That's right. That is the most recent news. Of course, Donald Trump over the weekend, after the Supreme Court struck down his initial 10% tariffs, has said he was going to impose 15% general tariffs on the rest of the world. It does seem, based on an announcement by US Border and Customs, that it'll be only 10%. I say only, still too much, but at least not an increase. And hopefully that'll be it. But I wouldn't bet this is the last time we talk about tariffs and Donald Trump this year.
No, I wouldn't bet either. Let's take it home now. CBA has announced it's cutting 300 jobs, but that's not the only headline.
No, this is really interesting, mate. They're cutting those 300 jobs and separately, but at the same time, talking about artificial intelligence or AI. And Matt Coleman, after previously having sacked some call centre workers, then inviting them back because AI wasn't ready to take their jobs, is now saying, look, we're going to lay off 300 people. Separately, we're going to train all of our staff to use AI. He's saying they're going to be moved into higher value jobs, that AI is going to make them more efficient and more productive, and the bank has a job to do to get them there. As I said, not linking those jobs at the moment, or those job cuts at the moment, to AI, but there's probably more on the way.
Southern Cross Media suffered a bad day on the ASX after it posted a disappointing half-yearly result and its CEO was dumped.
Yeah, it's a big triumvirate, right? Yeah, three things. The shares were down 9% to 60 cents, now 2/3 below the price they were when the Seven and Southern Cross merger was announced. And then you say Jeff Howard, the CEO, being dumped effectively the day before the results were announced. This seems to be, and almost certainly is, a takeover of Seven by the Southern Cross executive. Of course, Jeff Howard was in charge of Seven West Media before the merger, and that profit fall of 16%. The TV stations seem to be the big drag. The job is certainly ahead of the team at Southern Cross.
To news now that will surprise absolutely no one. The amount of money needed to enjoy a comfortable retirement has gone up. How much are we talking?
A lot, unfortunately, up by a lot and to a very large number. Now, this is data for people who own their own homes, by the way. So if you're renting, the number's even higher. But for a single, $630,000, that's up by 35 grand on this time last year. For a couple, $730,000, up by $40,000. And the reality here is what the Association of Super Funds of Australia, who put this data out, have said, which is the ABS data shows retirees' costs, their inflation, is actually growing faster than the average inflation rate, but pensions aren't keeping up. And that means you need to have more in the bank to maintain the same standard of living.
How are the US futures looking?
Pretty good, which is a nice way to finish. Early futures trading suggesting a gain of about 0.25%.
Scott Phillips, Motley Fool, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Healthy Harold has been a fixture in Australian schools for decades, teaching kids about the dangers of drugs and tackling bullying. This year, the beloved giraffe is back to take on a modern-day issue, convincing kids to minimise their screen time.
It was almost like old mates catching up outside Chester Hill's Bright Gems childcare this morning. Cabramatta Public, did he come round to visit you?
In the van. You know, Healthy Harold's like Vegemite. We all grew up with him.
Since the late 70s, the long-necked educator from the animal kingdom has travelled around the country, leaving indelible memories and lessons. What do you remember from your lessons with Healthy Harold?
Definitely healthy eating and brushing your teeth.
But Harold is now pivoting from primary to preschoolers and the dangers of the virtual world.
We now know that children as young as 3 are swiping before they can even talk properly.
The minister giving Harold a hand today.
A big red dot appears on Harold's screen. Should Harold press the dot? No.
The risk of inappropriate content now a daily parental concern, even for the centre's owners.
Luckily, I stopped her before she clicked it. She said, "Mum, what's this?"
How was your daughter?
She's 5 years old. We find nowadays a lot of children have speech delays where they're not even communicating, but they know how to use a device.
And Tony's mum is already cracking the whip. How many minutes?
20.
20 minutes, that's all you're allowed on the iPad?
Yes. If you think about where we started from, around alcohol and other drugs, to where we are now, we're still responding to those most complex challenges that are actually facing the different societies and different generations of today.
Mike Dalton, 9 News.
Bad Bunny has reportedly chartered a Qantas A380 to fly him and his entourage to Sydney from Sao Paulo. The Puerto Rican superstar touched down in the harbour city this morning as flight trackers noticed a Qantas plane had flown a direct route from Brazil it doesn't normally offer. The airline refused to comment, with the charter estimated to cost $1 million. The Super Bowl headliner will play 2 gigs at Sydney Olympic Park over the weekend. Stay with us after the break, your national weather forecast.
Transform your home into a haven with cool, pure, clean air, creating a world of perfect comfort. Take your home to the next level with the air specialists.
Let's take a look at your national weather forecast now. The satellite showing some moisture dragged south and southeastward from a deep low in the middle of the country. West of Tasmania, a cold front moves east, cloud and thunderstorm activity across much of the north of the country. A look at the capitals tomorrow now. Sydney, we see a shower or two, a top of 29 degrees. Melbourne, cloudy and 21. Brisbane heading for a sunny top of 30. Hotter in Perth, 36 degrees and sunshine. Adelaide to hit 30 degrees. Cooler in Hobart, 18 the top. Canberra, thunderstorms and 30. Similar conditions in Darwin. Thursday's forecast, showers in Sydney, 25 the maximum. Melbourne also 25 and some cloud around. Brisbane, rain, 30 degrees the expected top. Perth, 30 and sunshine. 33 in Adelaide. Hobart, a top of 20 and a low of 11 degrees. 22 and cloudy in Canberra and some showers on Thursday for Darwin with a top of 31 degrees. If you missed anything from tonight's bulletin, you can catch up on 9 Now. This is 9's Late News for this Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow night. I'm Michael Genovese. Thank you for your company. Good night.